Hi, this is Chantel, and I'm going to talk to you today about the Renaissance. In this portion specifically, we're looking more at the Italian Renaissance and the Renaissance in the South. And then later we'll look at the Northern Renaissance. The Renaissance occurred a little differently in the two locations. And some of the videos that we looked at of the crash course, etc., do a good job of showing you that, how those differences occurred. The primary thing in Italy and in the South is that it was more motivated by trade. Finances were good, and so we could spend the time exploring the arts and really contemplating who we are and what's important. This is a period of humanism, and we'll see that both in the North and the South, but it's expressed a little differently. Um, in the South, we're looking at our relationship with God and with the church, but also looking back at how the Greeks had that ideal and what that means to us as people in the Renaissance in the 1500s. And so, yeah, let's take a look at some of these pieces. This is a famous set of doors. These are the baptistry doors in Florence from about 1402 to 1423. They're bronze doors with gold leaf on the top. This is by an artist named Ghiberti, and he was pretty famous. And these are very shallow bas-relief sculptures and quite exquisite. You can see these are some of the details from the door, and you can see just these wonderful gold depictions and stories. Remember, people didn't read or write back then, at least not your common people. Um, Priests and scholars had the ability to read and write, but most people didn't. And so it was important to convey ideas and emotions and feelings through pictures. This is another door detail. And then here's a couple of sculptures by Ghiberti. He's one of the early masters of Renaissance art. And you can see a lot of this has that same sort of look as we had in the Greek and the Roman era, which we got away from for a while with the iconoclast controversy and trying to figure out how we felt about realistic images and that, are we trying to compete with God? This is a, an image from Brunelleschi's um, piece. This is a famous bit of architecture, and we're going to look at this dome a little bit later. This is in Florence. This was built in several phases. You can see this basilica base with a campanile here. And then we're going to look a little more at this dome structure. This is the world's biggest dome. It was initially engineered by Brunelleschi, and then Michelangelo also worked on it to enhance it. You can see we took the ideas of the arc and the arch that the Romans perfected, and again using cement, but tried to figure out how to build it up more and to a greater height, thus creating the world's largest dome. And this is a little more on how it was built. It's pretty fascinating. And this upper part is called the lantern, and there are stairs inside so that you can go between these levels to get up to the very top. These are some of the paintings inside the dome, really quite exquisite. One of the things I'm fascinated by with Renaissance artists is that all of these paintings, etc., the artists themselves had to build their own scaffolding, install the scaffolding, mix their paints from scratch, make their own paint brushes, etc. And obviously, the artist didn't work solo. They had a team of people working with them, their interns and whatnot. But it's still pretty impressive. Here we've got, this is a piece by Alberti. Another thing that we're going to see is that the lines, artists weren't just painters or just sculptors. They were painters and sculptors and architects, and they designed everything. So this is one of Alberti's architectural pieces, and he was an author, an architect, a poet, a priest, and this is the Santa Maria Novella, and we've got some polychromatic stone, and this is the first that we see using the scrolls to the side, but again, we're reflecting that Greek ideal in terms of architecture. Here's a close-up. Another close-up of the scrolls, pretty amazing. All right, let's get into some of the Renaissance artists that you may know. In fact, in this section, we're going to talk through all four of the artists that had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles named after them. The first of which is Donatello. This is Donatello's David. It's a freestanding nude bronze. It is the first known freestanding sculpture in bronze that was created post antiquities, post classical Greece. So between classical Greece and now in the like 1425 to 1430s, we hadn't seen anything like this. And he had some challenges to re-engineer and figure out how to create the balance, what kind of stability was necessary, and again, trying to capture the elegance of the human form and really explore how people move and how their bodies work. This is Donatello's equestrian statue. And again, in the Renaissance, we started trying to figure out how to engineer these kinds of statues. And you notice in this one, he has one hoof up. It became a challenge for some of the artists as they went on to try and figure out if they could create a horse standing perhaps on 2 feet and what engineering that would take. So this one was created in about 1453. This is a famous painting. It's The Birth of Venus from 1486. The artist was most well known as Botticelli, and Botticelli did many famous paintings. And you can see, trying to capture the skin tones, a sense of perspective, a sense of light and shadow and depth into this space. This is another Botticelli. This is Primavera from 1482. If you notice, this one and the other one are kind of flattened perspective, very much like the Greek vase paintings. And it's also very Neoplatonic in the viewpoints of trying to express some of Plato's ideas of the forms and of perfection and of that ideal. Moving onward, here is Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci, who lived from about 1452 to 1519. These are some of his notebooks and his explorations of human anatomy and understanding bird wings and how flight occurs, and trying to really understand the engineering of both human forms and animal forms. More sketches of Da Vinci's. We've got the Vitruvius Man. There was a book in ancient Greece that was, or ancient Rome, that was discovered, that was by Vitruvius, and it was an architectural book, Understanding Perfect Proportions. In this one, he's trying to look at human beings in terms of Vitruvian perfection and understanding that, our height is equal to our arm span, and how all of this lays out on the human form. Da Vinci was an inventor. He was trying to figure out ways to create flying machines and water wheels, and he even tried to figure out how to make cars and driving machines and things like that. And so he was an engineer and an artist. Um, Sometimes Da Vinci had some focus issues. He he took on a lot of projects, and some of them he didn't complete as fully as he possibly could have. Here's his famous Mona Lisa. Some of the things that are special about this is, again, there's an elegance of the folds in the fabric and a sense of perspective. And one of the things Da Vinci really explored was trying to understand how to make things look like they recede in space. So this is a technique called sfumato, wherein you kind of make the background smoky and hazy looking in order to help it visually retreat. Here's another one of his paintings. And here in the next one, I will show you, this is full of all kinds of symbolism. And here's a depiction how it shows, all of the various things in here, how the uh, the ermine is a symbol and the hands are symbols. And this was a painting done, commissioned for her love. The famous Last Supper by Da Vinci. Um, it's in pretty rough shape. As I told you, Da Vinci had some focus issues. With that, he was always exploring new and different and exciting things. And he was truly a Renaissance man. He was an artist, an engineer, a scientist, a sculptor. And he kept wanting to explore new and different ways to do things. And so, with the Last Supper, it was a commissioned artwork. He was playing around with different painting techniques, different surface techniques. Like, what if I prepare the wall differently than people have done so before? And he tried some new things. And sometimes those new techniques didn't work out as well as he'd hoped. But in many ways, at the time, he was just worried about finishing a project and getting paid for it. And so that's how he approached it. But in the Last Supper here, you can see that it's in pretty rough shape. It's kind of falling apart. And so they've done a lot to try to preserve it and restore it. But it's still an exquisite piece where he's exploring dimensionality and rhythmic poses and dynamic throughout the whole piece. All right, so we're going to pause here and we'll pick it up with the next Renaissance series. So we'll stop this one and then you'll go on to Renaissance art number 2. All right, thank you very much.